Unfortunately, tonight's presentation is not too much of it. Ran out of time, so you'd be thankful for that. But what I did want to do is take the opportunity to just talk a little bit about the anniversary. You're probably done to death with it, but the President requested that we show this, so it is worth seeing actually. Yeah. No, not Twitter. He's the one, I think he put it on, well, it's certainly on YouTube. All right. Okay. If you don't already know, today is actually the 48th anniversary of the Apollo 11 splashdown. So there you go. But a few days ago, it was the 48th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. And you know these gentlemen? Very good. You never get sick of seeing some of these photos, I must admit. And there's the famous
photo of Neil.
That. Are you sure that's Neil? Oh yes, yeah. That's not Neil. That's Buzz. But in the visor is Neil taking the picture. The little guy in the middle. Okay. Apparently, Len, you'd probably know the facts, but I think there's about 2,000 pictures of Buzz on the moon, and there's about 2 of Neil.
It's 5. So it's pretty amazing. But as Buzz would always say, Neil was holding the camera. So,
which is not true.
Anyway, let's not go there. All right, this is the video.
Video of the landing, and it's narrated by Neil Armstrong in 2012 when he visited Australia.
August 11.
Correct, because he passed away in 2012.
1 year.
This is good. It's actually quite an interesting video.
No good? Not showing. No, but it's actually not showing me. Go on. Oh, there we go. I was trying to get my... Yeah, that's it. Okay, we got it. Peter Alwood was lucky enough to be there. And you were too, Len.
This slide shows the trajectory to the surface. The actual powered descent of the lunar module to the surface took 12 minutes and 32 seconds. And this is just the final 3 minutes, the part that's really interesting as you get close to the surface of the moon. Now, in the left screen, you will see the original 1969 movie film that we took from the window of the lunar module Eagle. And on the right side, you will see what the crew saw looking out the window in front of them. Now, there is a shaded area there that shows you the exact duplicate of the area that's on the left, so you can compare the craters and see if they are duplicate of each other. The one on the left took place 42 years ago. This picture's on the right took place in the last 2 years. Okay, we've been descending. I should tell you, you'll hear the crewmen talking. They're my co-pilot giving altitude and descent rates, and you'll hear people in the background talking from Mission Control on Earth. We've been descending about 2,000 meters a minute. We're now down to about below 1,000 meters in altitude. My computer tells me that it's taking us to a landing just on the right side of that big crater up in the left-hand corner. The slopes are steep and the rocks look very large, the size of automobiles. Certainly not a place that I want to land. So I took over manually from the computer, the autopilot, and flew it like a helicopter on out to the west to try to find a smoother, more level landing spot. The computer is complaining now and then. You'll hear caution alarms, 1202s and 1201s, which is telling us the computer is a little bit concerned about its operation, but everything looks good, and the people in Mission Control tell us we can continue. Okay, we're about 100 meters above the surface, looking down at this 30-meter crater, about 8 meters deep. Looks like a real geological treasure. I want to go back there and look at that if I ever get the chance while I'm on foot. We're looking for a smooth spot beyond that crater. I see a smooth spot right up near the top of the screen. It looks like that's a good place to be, and I'm running low on fuel. I have less than 2 minutes of fuel.
Good. 20 feet.
Getting down below about 70 meters now. 50 meters, still looking good. In the left side, you will see in the old movie that the rocket engine is starting to kick up some dust off the surface.
Lights on. Down 2.5.
Get a 30-second fuel warning. Need to get it down on the ground here pretty soon before we run out. Okay.
40 feet down, 2.5.
The picture on the left is more accurate, but there's more dust. There you see the shadow of my landing leg coming on the surface on the blowing dust. We're very close to the surface right now.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Pretty cool. I do actually have another video, but this was one that recently got posted. How do I get my mouse back out to there? Go that way. I see. Here we go. All right. Yeah, it's not where that tab is. Here we go. Yeah, just quickly, this was one that was recently put up. It's very similar, but what it actually does, it shows you, names the craters as it's flying along. It's exactly the same, pretty much. It'll start eventually. Oh, this is different. This is another video. This actually shows you the taking from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it actually shows you different times of the day on the moon. But that's actually high resolution picture of the descent module sitting on the moon now. And if you look closely, you might actually see some of the tracks. And you'll see some of the tracks going to the west crater, I think they call it, even though it's on the east. It looks like it's on the east side, but so north must be down. Yep. you'll actually see pictures of the hardware. And there's a TV camera that we would have seen facing north, watching the on the moon. I won't keep going with that because that takes a fair bit. So we'll go to the next slide. Oh, well, there you go. Got to get a picture of that. It's nice art. Probably. That was a good thought. Yeah, I think so. No, absolutely. There's a moon invasion about to start in the next couple of years, so you can bank on the fact that everyone's going there, even the Americans.
The current launch vehicle is PowerPoint, so let's wait and see if it gets through.
Okay, everybody's dog's going there. All right, let's go back to this and start the other one.
Just a bit of space news. So that was a little bit on.
Postscript on that. I was contacted recently by James Hansen, who's revamping the book First Man for 2019. He wanted to add a bit about the Neil video interviews that were done in Australia and how they were publicly released when they weren't supposed to be.
Oh, is that right?
And he said, do you know anything about it? I said, I know a bit. So I sent him a bit about that because when the story broke, it was in early 2012. And I have been fortunate enough to have a little bit of email correspondence with Mr. Armstrong, and I said, I'll give you a heads up to this. He said, yeah, I know. He said, they weren't supposed to be released. He said, thanks for the heads up. I've already got the press coming to my door. So I sent all that material to Jim Hansen, and he said, he's also spoken to Carol Armstrong about it. He said, the CPA, the head of CPA Australia, Alex Malley, he said, it's a snake. I said, yeah, I reckon. And then I sent him, the day after he sent me that, there was a big story in the paper that Alex Malley got sacked. So I sent him that. I said, you can add that as well. Yeah. So he said he's going to put a little bit in the next edition of the book about that.
Oh.
That'll be interesting. And the other thing that's coming out, of course, is the movie of Neil Armstrong. So
yes.
So that'll be something to see. Do you know when it's coming in?
The premiere, I think, is November 2018.
So it'll just be around about the 50th anniversary. Almost. So pretty.
Anybody who's watched the Netflix series The Crown, about the British royal family, the lady who plays Queen Elizabeth, Claire Foy, will play Janet Armstrong.
Very good. Anyway, another good one. Hopefully,
it's one for the top 10 list of best fake movies.
Well, who doesn't want to go see Ryan Gosling?
Okay, just a little bit of an update. I didn't have time to really go into this in great detail, but
of course, I've got to. How come I can't do this again? Why can't I? Hang on. Let's try again. Here we go. Washington Roundup. A few things have happened over the last month or so, but surprise, surprise, the House has actually advocated or put together a bill to provide NASA with more money than what the NASA budget request that comes from the administration was. So it actually gives NASA $19.9 billion in 2018, which is $780 million more than what it would have its request, and that's $200 million more than it got in 2017. If you recall, 2017 they had a kind of a record budget for these times. Apollo budgets were in the order of about $100 billion a year, which is some ridiculous figure, but in current terms, 19 billion is not a bad effort. So they've really it was a significant increase for exploration programs, and also to fund what was actually terminated was some of the education programs, and some of the programs like the Europa lander are back on the agenda. And I love NASA's strategy: get rid of some of the good stuff, and the money comes back one way or the other. Now it's got to get through the Senate and all the rest of it, but its chances are they'll get the money. Finally, the National Space Council was re-established. The last time it was around was in the early 90s with Bush #1, and it'll be chaired by Vice President Mike Pence with an executive secretary, the guy that does the work, called Scott Pace. He's currently a director of space policy at the George Washington University.
The NASA administrator, or takes him out of the running completely?
I think personally, I think it takes him out of the
running, because he wants to be in an objective position, but they're in no hurry to either develop space policy or appoint another administrator. At the moment, the acting administrator, Lightfoot, may just get the gig. Okay. The other thing is, and this is not really civil space, but it's US Air Force. You know, they can't wait to militarise space, but the House has actually put together a bill to create a Space Corps. Now, the Air Force are dead against this. There'll be a sub-branch of the Air Force. The Air Force is dead against it. They just think it's bureaucracy and less control for them directly.
Absolutely.
But it's actually had, in the House, it actually got wide support, which surprised me. And now, but the Senate's not really keen on it. So now it's got to go through the machinations of getting through the Senate. But I was just kind of horrified. Now, I don't know what the Chinese, or mind you, the Chinese space program is run by the People's Liberation Army anyway. But, you know, having a Space Corps is just crazy, crazy stuff.
But it's
the first step to militarising space, which we certainly don't want. Also, Charlie Bolden came out and basically said, you know, Trump administration is failing to back up its space rhetoric with funding. But what was interesting to me was the next bit. He said the new administration had the opportunity to show leadership by actually funding the first SLS flight with men in it. Remember, we spoke about it some months back, and they canned it. And Bolden is saying it was canned because of money. The Trump administration didn't want to fund it. Now, it's been delayed from 2018 or 2019 launch, but even so, I thought that was an interesting point. He also supported putting Robert Lightfoot in a position permanently, and I never miss a chance to put up Trump on the screen. I forgot what he was signing at that stage, but they're all mates now because during the elections they all hated each other. Europa Clipper gets the tick, and Europa Lander might get the tick for a year, but probably get dumped the following year. And these are the two blokes we're talking about. He's the Vice President, and Scott Pace is the Secretary. Bit on the space station. Russia is going to start sending tourists back up there. So if you've got a few rubles that you'd like to give them, they'll next year. Real dollars. Okay. All right. Euros, perhaps. Anyway, the bottom line is they're now talking about sending tourists back up there because they've got a spare seat because the Americans are launching via Boeing or via SpaceX, and but they also said we've got people who want to go for the trip around the moon, a la SpaceX, you know, Grey Dragon. And they said, but we just need someone to fund the development of the Soyuz spacecraft to get it capable of going to the moon. Anyway, so if you've got a few dollars, you can probably do both. There we go, a few pictures of the Russian stuff. Then we go on to commercial resupply services. CRS-11, if you remember, we had the launch and fantastic landing. Beautiful video, came back, and that was the second time that capsule had flown, so good for SpaceX. Now we've got the commercial crew transportation, a bit of general. NASA has now given an update of the new launch schedules as the next generation of the spacecraft are sort of getting towards final stages of development and evaluation. To meet the requirements, the commercial providers have to demonstrate the systems are ready to go. Now, there's going to be 2 demonstrations, uncrewed, one from SpaceX, one from Boeing, and then there will be 2 missions, one from Boeing, one from SpaceX, manned. They become the test flights. After that, both Boeing and SpaceX starts committing to its contract of resupply of the space station with astronauts. Well, I'll come to that. Boeing, this is their schedule at the moment. There will be no pad aboard, as we've said on many occasions. They haven't moved. They haven't moved in about a year, these dates here. They're looking at June 18, uncrewed, and August 18, manned flight on the Atlas. And there's the Atlas, and you'll see the CST-100 or the Starliner. SpaceX, their dates are February. Now, that was November. I thought the slip would be more than that, but it hasn't been. So far, it's February. And it's kind of supported by news coming out of SpaceX and NASA as well. So, in a few months' time, not so long, we'll see SpaceX take their Crew Dragon into space. And early in 2018, they're scheduled to do a in-flight abort. So we're not quite sure when, no date has come about, but before they they fly their manned mission in June of 2018. It was April. They're going to do that. And that's what it looks like. And there it is sitting on the launch pad. SpaceX General. All the black has happened. Amazing launch rate, as we've spoken about over the last couple of months. The next one that's going up, that 11th of August, is CRS-12. That's now moved to the 14th, no earlier than the 14th of August. And then on no earlier than the 28th, we've got the X-37B, which is the US Air Force space plane. Will be getting a lift from a Falcon 9. Likely in October. It'll probably December. We'll have the Falcon Heavy. And that's they're moving at a great rate of knots of getting that going. And no earlier than September 2017, there is another Air Force, and that's the reason why they've got to get this Falcon Heavy going, because they've got an Air Force, big Air Force payload to go up. It's not going to be September, it'll be later than that. Grey Dragon, still on the books. That's the swing around the moon with some very rich benefactor. But the big news for the month was Red Dragon cancelled. Ain't going to happen. I'll come back to that. Key events that are happening with SpaceX. Space Launch Complex 40 is now being repaired. 39A is well on the way to being demolished. If anyone, I couldn't get a picture of it, but if you have a look at today's sort of picture, you'll see half that service structure is now starting to disappear. And they have to get rid of that for Falcon. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. Landing Zone 1 is being expanded. I'll show you a picture of that. We spoke about that last month. The Texas site is well underway to give them another launch facility. SpaceX has one final upgrade of Falcon. It's called the Block 5. They're currently flying the Block 3. Block 4 is about to fly. Block 5 is the final iteration of the Falcon. And it really addresses the issues that NASA want to launch men into space. So it addresses all these little certification issues and safety issues. He also reaffirmed that developing rockets is difficult. He didn't realise the magnitude of problems in developing the Falcon Heavy. I'm serious. He actually had to He had to redesign the whole of the core stage, and it's got to do with vibrations. And he's actually downplaying the expectations on this thing, because some of the vibrations testing can only happen with launches. They can't simulate this stuff. So there is a real possibility that things can go badly wrong with this on its first launch. So they really have to launch it to verify the way it works. And what really complicates it is not only the stresses that the rocket goes through, but if a couple of engines fail, they've got to design it to account for those mishaps. So,
So anyway,
he's really had trouble with it. But the important thing is he's downplaying it. So he's saying, don't expect a perfect launch. A lot of people in the industry are saying don't expect a perfect launch too. So they all know how hard it is. Elon Musk will hold off to update his Mars architecture. When he cancelled Dragon, he actually proposed that he's got a new architecture. And guess what? It'll happen in Adelaide in September, we hope.
Very interesting. So he's acknowledging the entry, landing, and descent approach problem to Mars is very difficult.
he is, but
Look, the story I got, and I suspect it's probably a bit of everything, but the story I got was that NASA was not keen on having a heat shield that had legs pop out of it. Now, I think back to the space shuttle that has wheels, big wheels coming out of it. So why have they been so hard on, say, SpaceX? So the theory is that's not the only reason. It is a hard thing to do. It is a hard thing to do, and he probably just said, no, too hard to develop, cost us a lot of money, we'll move on. But he is offering a smaller, not like this interplanetary transport thing that he's talking about. He's offering something smaller, but much larger than the Dragon. So we'll see what comes of it, and we'll start to hear about it in September. I don't know how well advanced these plans are, but we hope that Mars is not too far off the radar. It was going to be 2020. Okay, it might be shifted 2023 or 24, but yeah, it's still in the sort of still in the sights. The other thing is, of course, he's coming over to Adelaide to probably see that he's finished his big battery that he's meant to do in 100 days, or it's free. So that'll be good. And there's the structure. Now that's the space shuttle structure, and the middle bit is starting to disappear. And within the next month, you'll find that'll be gone, and you're only left with the main tower. There it is. Falcon Heavy versus Falcon 9. There's the Heavy on the pad. There's the Launch Complex 40 after the explosion. If the Falcon Heavy explodes on 39A, he's going to have a bit of a problem, because all the manned launches to the space station are meant to be off 39A. Now he's building other pads, I know, back to 40, but they're not man capable, I suspect. So he doesn't want to blow that pad up, that's for sure. And these are the landing zones he's building, and there it is of a recent picture. SpaceX Moon mission, Grey Dragon still on, cancelled, won't happen. Now we go to Jeff Bezos. Blue Origin is to build a factory to produce the BE-4 engines in Huntsville, Alabama. They were trying to get him into Florida, but he went Alabama. He'll employ 300 people and produce 30 engines a year, probably to be right next to ULA. ULA will use, they're front runners to provide engines to the new Vulcan rocket. And Launch Complex 36, they're using that as a launch pad, as well as a Launch Complex 11 for engine testing. And of course, this was a concept he recently made to say to NASA, we'll provide transport for you to the moon. We'll build this for you. You just buy the gear. There he is. There's his New Glenn rocket. There's the B4. This is the size. So we're now into the super rocket phase, if you like. We're going to starting with Falcon Heavy. We're going to start seeing some big rockets come off the line. What's this one? Why didn't that come up? That must be a video. You're not going to play that. Size matters. There you go. And it's got how many? 6? 7 BE-4 engines. Quite a sizable rocket, actually. Now there's the factory. Now Michael and I last night must have been an hour and a half looking for where this actually is, but there it is. Now for those that know Kennedy Space Center, the top of the page, within walking distance, is the visitor centre. So this is what's called Exploration Park. To the right, there's more development there that's going on, but this is Jeff Bezos' shed. And the roof has started in the middle and slowly stretching across. So, yeah, well, now you'll see on Instagram there's a video of him sitting on a roof holding a rocket factory to come. Now the whole roof is finished.
Of the building itself,
Yeah.
from the car park. So
It's
close to what
a sizable building, and there
To the right, to the left top is Web. What's it called? OneWeb. Yeah, they're right next to Blue Origin. Orbital ATK. They're due to fly Antares with the new Russian engines shortly. They still never made an announcement because the Air Force were looking at another launcher, so I don't know where they got to with that. Sierra Nevada. Well, the Dream Chaser is on the move at Edwards. So we've been saying that they're going to do another test flight, but finally they're actually been dragging it along the runway, letting it go to see how it steers itself and does its things. It's a little baby shuttle, for those that don't know what Dream Chaser is, and the drop tests are going to happen shortly. In the meanwhile, the cargo version is being developed. Those tests that they're doing at Edwards are actually part of one of their first contracts that they got, but then they didn't get the ongoing contract of flying men. And there it is. And this was at Edwards not so long ago. This was the mission in, when was it? 2013, where one of the landing gear didn't come down, and we never quite saw it rolling along the runway, but it did. And this is what they're actually building. And what they've done is they've ordered 2 Atlas rockets for 2020 and 21 to actually take cargo to the space station. Strato launch, the other thing that came up was the Air Force is interested in it, perhaps. So that, I guess, helps with his business case, because all he was going to launch at this point with the big plane was Pegasus rockets. And it was meant to be for bigger rockets, but they've never quite stitched that game up. But maybe the Air Force can use it. We showed that last time. It is the biggest wingspan of any aircraft ever built. X-Prize. The X-Prize, we're running out of time, but the one I wanted to just quickly look at was Moon Express. He came up the other day, the anniversary of the Apollo 11, with an architecture of I'll give you a ride to the moon on these things, and he's talking about launching this thing in certainly the Lunar X Prize if he can get it up, but he's flying the Electron Rocket Lab Electron rocket, which almost got to orbit from New Zealand, if you recall, but didn't quite get there. So the rocket's not ready. The Lunar X Prize time is running out, so they might not get there for the Lunar X Prize, which is worth $20 million to them. Sorry? Well, apparently it breaks up into various components.
Do you reasonably expect to see anyone throw something at the moon in the next 6 months?
I'd say 50-50. Be nice if they did. But this one is one of the close ones. And he's built an architecture. This guy's about moon mining. But he's built an architecture where he straps, 6 of these things together, and he can actually do lunar sample returns. But he's actually got a little gig going with some astronomical company to provide a little observatory up in the South Pole near Shackleton Crater. So that seems to be heading in the right direction for 2020-21. So this guy, he almost looks like he's got the credentials. So we'll see what happens. And he'll fly, of course, on the Electron. I have no idea how he's going to do it. I thought it was underpowered myself, but he's flying the Electron. Go figure. That's it. Thank you.